Something to remember if you are someone who's providing a service, leading a group, or meeting someone in a work or professional capacity is that the words, your tone of voice, and body language with which you greet your client, your patient, your student, your class, your new coworker can set you up for a professional relationship that inspires confidence, collaboration, and trust.
I don't like to argue, so I say nothing and fume for days.
How do I set boundaries without sounding like a jerk?
I hate the idea that I might accidentally offend somebody, so sometimes I'd just rather say nothing at all.
Welcome to the Language Alchemy Podcast, and thank you for joining me today. This is your host, Alejandra Siroka, a transformative communication teacher and coach who's devoted to helping multicultural individuals and couples engaged in personal growth transform their lives and relationships through conscious communication. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so grateful you are here learning transformative communication tools for conscious living. I'd like you to know that you are listening to the podcast with listeners from 48 countries. Yes, people from 25% of the countries in the world are listening to the Language Alchemy Podcast, and you are one of them. So once again, thank you for being here. Today, I have a thought-provoking episode for you because we are going to talk about something we don't really think about, which is how we greet others consciously. I learned from one of my Ayurveda teachers, Dr. Robert Svoboda, that when we want to be successful at anything, we need to pay attention to how we begin that specific endeavor. And how do we begin the endeavor of communication? We usually start with a greeting. In this episode, you are going to find out why greetings are so important. The words we use to greet someone, our tone of voice, and our body language can serve as the foundation of a meaningful interaction and even the whole relationship. Now, remember when I'm talking about relationships, I'm not just talking about romantic or intimate relationships. I am referring to any kind of human relationship that can include romantic ones, but also platonic, familial, situational, and professional or work relationships. When you think about it, most relationships start with a greeting. Greetings can set us up for new, wonderful, and fruitful relationships. And of course, greetings can also create the space for hostility, distrust, and unsatisfactory relationships. Let me give you some examples. Let's say your sibling has been dating someone for a couple of months and they bring this new person to an important family gathering. So you know they're getting serious. How do you greet this person? What words would you use? Imagine you greet this person in the following way. Hi, I'm so-and-so. Let me take your coat. And I can also take the dessert you made and bring it to the kitchen. Now, what kind of relationship are these words and tone of voice starting? What if I use different words and a different tone of voice? And I say something like, Hi, so-and-so. Welcome. I'm TJ's sister. We're so happy you're here. I look forward to chatting during dinner. Feel free to leave your coat over there. And may I take you to the kitchen to show you where we're placing desserts and introduce you to the rest of the family? Wouldn't that be so different? What kind of relationship are these words and tone of voice starting? I'm sharing this example because it actually happened to me. If you've been following me for some time, you know that Matthew and I met about 20 years ago. And I met his family shortly after meeting him, so also 20 years ago. To this day, I still remember how members of Matthew's family greeted me when we met for the first time. Two of these members were his mom and stepdad. The first time we met, it was in New York at a restaurant. When we entered the restaurant, Matthew's mom and stepdad were already there waiting for us. As soon as they saw us coming in, they both stood up with open arms and greeted me with welcoming words, giant smiles, and warm hugs. I immediately felt welcomed and relaxed, even though up until that second, I was really nervous because Matthew's an only child, and I didn't know what his mom was going to be like with me. Since that very first greeting, I got the message that we could have a close relationship. That greeting set us up for that. And it's been very much so. When Matthew's stepdad was in hospice, he and I shared beautiful, intimate moments together, listening to Frank Sinatra and holding hands. And with Matthew's mom, I have a very close relationship, so much so that she calls me daughter and I call her mom. That first greeting set us up for the closeness we've continued to cultivate over the years. What about the role of greetings in professional relationships? Greetings in professional relationships make a huge impact in terms of building trust, confidence, and collaboration from the start. Let me give you an example. You've been studying yoga with the same teacher week after week. One day, you go to this teacher's yoga class and the teacher isn't there. There's a substitute teacher. And this teacher starts the class with this greeting. I'm sorry, so-and-so who usually teaches this class is not here. So you're stuck with me today. How would you feel hearing this greeting? And let me tell you, I've heard so many substitute yoga teachers start a class with an apology, followed by some self-deprecating comment. When you hear these words as the greeting from the substitute teacher, someone who's in a position of leadership in this situation, those words do not inspire confidence or trust. As a result, you may not follow the teacher's guidance to the T, or you may get distracted, or you may feel that indeed you are stuck with this teacher for the next hour. And that feels so limiting instead of experiencing the feelings of connection and liberation, which are the purpose of yoga. But what if instead, when you go to your regular yoga class and your teacher isn't there, the substitute teacher says something like this: "Good morning. Today I'm subbing for so-and-so, who usually teaches this class. And I know you're used to having a vigorous practice. So you're in for a treat because today we'll do just that. You are going to explore a variation in the sequence, so just notice how your body feels as you go through the class. And now, let's begin." How would you feel hearing this kind of greeting? I bet you'd be willing to follow their instructions and their lead because this teacher inspired confidence and trust. How? With their greeting. The same goes for other professional relationships. I remember having a doctor I decided to stop seeing after our third appointment because each time I saw this doctor, she greeted me with, "I'm Dr. So-and-so. Nice to meet you." While these words may be welcoming, it undermined my trust in her when she said, "Nice to meet you," after having seen her twice before in a period of 90 days. Her greeting not only sounded robotic, but also her tone of voice sounded inauthentic. I didn't trust she would provide the kind of care I was seeking with the treatment I was doing. Later on, when I switched to a different doctor within the same healthcare system, the second doctor greeted me with, "Hi, Miss Siroka, I'm Dr. So-and-so. I see here that you saw my colleague 3 times in the last 3 months. I'd like to know how things are for you now and see how I can support you during this treatment." So different, right? Because of this greeting, I continued seeing the doctor until the end of the treatment. And I followed all her recommendations because her greeting set us up for trust in our professional relationship. Something to remember if you are someone who's providing a service, leading a group, or meeting someone in a work or professional capacity is that the words, your tone of voice, and body language with which you greet your client, your patient, your student, your class, your new coworker can set you up for a professional relationship that inspires confidence, collaboration, and trust. Greetings can also set you up for positive and great experiences with the people closest to you, whether they're your family or the people you live with. I have a question for you. How do you greet the people you love when they call you on the phone? Do you say, "Hi, what's up?" Or do you say, "Hi, sweetie, what's up?" Different, right? Greetings, which can be just a few words, let others know how present you are with them, how you feel about them, and what kind of relationship you have with them. In my life, I make it a point to start with conscious greetings. For example, I start the podcast episodes with a conscious greeting. And if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you may have noticed that my greeting is not always the same because I want my greeting to reflect what's true for the kind of relationship I want to establish with you, my listener, each time you listen to an episode. And I do the same with the closest people in my life. I call my mother twice a week. I start the call greeting her in various ways using a term of endearment that I have for her to establish that sense of connection. And when Matthew calls me, even if it's to say that he's going to the grocery store and he wants to know what to get, I choose to greet him consciously. Many times when I pick up the phone, I say to him, "Oh, my favorite person in the world. Hello, my love." And every time he responds with laughter. I love hearing his laughter whenever he hears this greeting. And while I'm not suggesting you replicate my greetings with the closest people in your life, I am encouraging you to consider how you would like to greet the most important people in your life in your day-to-day encounters with them. A communication coaching client of mine shared with me how discouraging it was for him to get back home after a long day of work and hear a greeting that didn't feel welcoming at all. He said to me, "Alejandra, when I hear this greeting, I don't feel like I'm coming home. I feel like I'm coming into a minefield, and I immediately have tension in my shoulders." So remember, the way you greet others sets both of you up for meaningful connection. So take a moment right now and think about the words, the tone of voice, the body language you have when the most important people in your life see you, call you, or meet with you. If the way you're greeting them now is giving them the message that they're bothering you, that you have no time for them, that they're a nuisance, then it's time to change the way you greet them. If instead you'd like them to know they matter to you, if you'd like them to have a meaningful and positive experience with you, then choose to greet them in a way that can set you up for meaningful and positive relationships. Finally, consider that greetings do a lot to contribute to exclusivity or inclusivity. If you and I connect through social media, Instagram or Facebook, then you know that I love going to live music concerts, especially jazz concerts. At the beginning of a concert, there's usually a greeting. These greetings say a lot in terms of exclusivity or inclusivity. I recently attended a jazz festival and I noticed 3 kinds of greetings I'm going to share with you here. One was, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome so-and-so to the stage." The second one was, "Kids of all ages, be ready to have fun to the groove of so-and-so." And the third one was, "Music friends, let's give a warm welcome to our beloved local group." Can you hear how these greetings can be inclusive or exclusive? So next time you are addressing a group, especially a group of diverse individuals, consider how to create an atmosphere of inclusivity by being conscious of the words you use and your tone of voice when you greet them. And now let's recap what you've heard. Today, we talked about the importance of conscious greetings in personal, professional, and intimate relationships. I shared with you how the first words we say to someone, the language we use at the very beginning, our tone of voice and body language with which we express those words, set the conditions for the interaction and the relationship. Greetings can elicit a sense of belonging or exclusion. I gave you several examples of greetings, and I encouraged you throughout the episode to bring awareness to how you greet others. Thank you so much for listening, and a special thanks to all of you who have written to me in the last month, thanking me for the podcast or for what you've learned in the newsletters. It means the world to me to hear from you. One last thing. If you have friends who could benefit from listening to the Language Alchemy podcast, please share the podcast with them. No matter what country they're in, they can listen to the podcast for free. Remember, there are people in 48 countries who are already doing that. So help me bring the podcast to more people in more countries. Oh, and if you want to know which countries those are, I share the list of countries on Instagram and Facebook. You can find them at Language Alchemy. Until next week, and as we say in Argentina, ciao ciao. Original music by Gary Lapo. You can find all links in the show notes at languagealchemy.com.